Welcome to Season 2 of RecLess, the podcast making you smarter and more knowledgeable about the field of parks and recreation. Join hosts Shane Mize, Jay Tryon, and Tom Venniro, three career-long friends from around the country as they dive into the world of parks and recreation with a surprise guest each episode. Laughs, leadership, life. This is RecLess. Welcome to RecLess. We're so glad to be here today. I'm Hannah Mize, and I'm joined, as always, with our very esteemed hosts, Jay Tryon, Tom Venniro, and Shane Mize. Welcome, guys.
Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks for having us. This is great.
Yeah, you even switched up the order of our names. That was different, you know?
I was trying to keep everybody on their toes. So first of all, thanks for letting me host today. This is episode 43. This is our season 2 recap of all the things RecLess and all the things we've done this season. It's been a really exciting season. I first want to say thank you to our unofficial sponsor, Element. If in case you have never heard of Element, it is an electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing you don't. So anyway, we have been really excited to be sponsored by Element. They've given us some drink packets and we've all been enjoying them. I'm drinking mine. See, Shane has his. I don't know, guys, if you've enjoyed yours, but thank you to Element. All right. So with that today, I've got us a question to get us all started. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
Always.
All right. We're about to go to conference. I don't know about you. I'm super pumped and very excited to see all of you guys in person. We're gonna.
Yeah, it's not about to. It's like it's
It
July.
feels, I'm counting down the days already, so I just
You'll be
assume
here,
everyone
tomorrow.
else is counting down. Like I'm almost to the point of like making the countdown chain. Like
Yeah,
anyway.
we do it all the time with the kids for Disney.
Yeah, I'm not on their level.
Every 3 months. We actually have one for the adult trip coming up in August too.
I'm making mine for a conference, just so you know. So anyway, we're all about to be at conference, sort of. I'm looking more excited or more forward to it than you are, evidently. But if looking back on season 2, if you could recommend, you're going to meet new people. If you recommend one episode of season 2 to someone that we meet, what episode would you recommend?
Okay. Atuya, we'll let you. I want to just say it's impossible. This is an impossible question, but I'm very interested to hear everybody's reasoning. So go for it. Atuya, why?
I think if you listen to Barbie, Atuya, Michael Klitzky, if you listen to those three, I think it shows the span of what we are trying to do
Just
as a podcast. But if you're trying to get the soul of our industry, like the passion for it, what it means to them, what they feel like when they're giving back, I felt like Atuya's episode really dived into some of that. And it's tough to listen to Atuya for an hour and not come away excited about our industry, excited about what we do. We had a lot of great guests on, but if I had to choose one and I just wanted them to hear one person and get an idea of what we are, what the industry is, I think Atuya makes a lot of sense.
Atuya made my list, and so you gave us 3, and you might have robbed a few of us, but yeah, I mean the awesome sauce, right? Like that's such a great takeaway, and that's Anyway, a lot of people that are on our show, a lot of our guests have so many lessons, and that's one that I think I'll always resonate with is that awesome sauce because it's such a great way to either build yourself up or those around you. And that kind of, it transitions into, Johnny O. Skinner was another one who was really, rah, build people up. And I never met Johnny O before this episode. I feel like I've known him forever.
Yeah.
If I had to pick one though, it would have been one in your 3 there. And it would be Michael Klitzing. With Michael's episode, I just, I think everybody gives us a lesson, right? You have takeaways from all of these episodes. What I really enjoy about Michael is obviously the bar that they set in Caramel Clay. Right. So I guess that's where I'm going with this. If you're just getting into this and you want to hear from, the best of the best, that agency and that organization, not that anybody else that we had don't have great organizations, but you can hear it in the episode, right? We don't necessarily focus on everybody's agency in every episode, but in Michael's, Caramel Clay got a really big spotlight, and obviously his leadership and everything that he's done to build it where it is a really great story from start to finish.
Jay, what about you?
I agree with everything you said. And I know you mentioned Jonathan's name. I think Jonathan comes to mind. It was one of the first episodes we talked about a very different type of programming. We talked a lot about fishing, which I thought was very unique because not everyone has opportunities to go fishing. But we spent a good chunk of that episode talking about highlighting your staff. I think we don't talk about that enough. And I'm not saying us as in this podcast, but I think just departments in general don't always do that. And I think we need to have that at the forefront of so many different conversations moving forward so that we're sharing more success stories, that we're highlighting the staff, because obviously everyone's doing amazing things. But if we don't give them the credit, we're not going to be able to showcase as much as we want to. And it might actually, lead to that burnout and lead to feel people not being appreciated. And, he had some great things that he talked about that he does, and staff t-shirts and all this recognition, that it was definitely inspiring to hear the positive vibes that he pulls for all of that staff to showcase everything they do. And I think we just, as department leaders, need to do that more often.
Yeah, no, I'm right with you there with Johnny O, and him and Atuya's episode definitely connected. And I just want to add one note, obviously overstepping the question, but I think you can get a theme out of every one of these episodes, right? So high energy, excitement, Tracy Crawford, right? A little controversy, the Barbie Hernandez episode, if you kind of want to get a little bit of that. Fun, Nate Jaramillo as a guest. I mean, how fun was that? We haven't connected with him. And so any one of those episodes or all of these episodes, there's just kind of a different underlying theme to all of it, which, if anybody out there, any of our listeners wanted to kind of, hey, where would you start if I wanted to learn a little bit about marketing, right? And Beck. I think we cover a lot. And if anybody were to ask me that, I think we can get people started in the right direction.
I love all of those answers. I was definitely thinking Tracy Crawford. One of the things that I loved about her episode was just how she flipped the thought process behind whatever it is that parks do. And that goes into anything else too. Like, how do I interact with other people that are around me? Like, do I think of the different things that other people go through in order to get from the parking lot to the park? Or, just in everyday life, are we making things accessible for others? I really loved the challenge that she had of just changing your mindset and putting yourself in other people's shoes to be able to look at how they deal with life. I really enjoyed her.
Yeah.
Also really enjoyed Nate's as well. Well, as the host today, I do have a guest, which I'm kind of excited about, or guests, because at this point we have done more than one. So, it could go either way. Are you guys ready?
Let's do it.
Yeah, I bet they're ready. They've been here for about 30 minutes.
If they did, if they were a fan before this,
We're testing it.
Yeah,
We're
testing it.
definitely. Okay, well, you ready? Here we go. So, with that, our guest or guests is a RecLess super fan. That's one little thing right there.
Okay. That's rare.
That is, well, one of the 2 listeners or the 11 listeners, which is a good thing. All right. So this person has been a collegiate athlete, is a highly competitive person. This person is an animal lover. This person is a director of a small but
The Katy
growing
Keller?
municipality. And this person is our very, very first guest. Please welcome back
Keller.
Katy Keller.
Get out of here.
Hi.
Oh, man.
What's up?
Katie.
Yeah.
How you
And
doing?
obviously, from my struggles of just trying to get this thing started, I needed to bring somebody else that could help be the on-screen talent, because this was a struggle. So
What a
thank you, Katy, for
surprise.
being here.
Now I feel way
Yeah.
less bad about having someone sit through the crap we talked about before we started this episode, because
She sat through hours of our crap in the
Yeah.
past.
Yes, that, but also of like, you don't know how hard it was for me not to be like, hey, how's it going? Like, what are we doing?
Awesome.
Oh,
Super
Good to see
excited.
Yeah, good to see you guys. Thanks for having me on. And I know this was supposed to be Hannah's thing, but I threw a curveball at her and I said, how about I be the host and do what I do best and take over things? And I
is
interview
true.
all four of you. That is true. And be careful, Jay. And
boy.
Hannah would ask me about the collegiate athlete. I was like, but do not tell Jay or do not say softball because I've hit Jay several times pitching to him. And he's
On
never let me
purpose?
down. Yes, it was very
Okay.
intentional.
We had a good time going to a batting cage one day, and it was fun.
Did you
Let's
get
just
hits
say
off of her?
she is talented. I can say
No.
that.
He did
What's
not
that?
get a hit off of me.
I asked if you
Oh,
got hits off
there
her.
is video footage of me getting hits off of you.
No.
So don't say that I never hit the ball.
No, that's not. He made contact.
Yeah.
No.
It's a hit, getting a hit and hitting the ball are different things.
And I'll tell you though, she didn't think I'd even make contact.
I didn't. I was actually impressed. I was like, huh, all right. Well, this is a
I wouldn't have
surprise.
made contact.
No, I would love to see a video of that.
I'm going to kind of take over this and we have some games to play today.
Okay.
And it's going to be really
You couldn't let Josh
exciting.
have the last word. You had to come back on.
No. And let me tell you, like yes. There are several whenever I was listening to that, and he did all of the spouses did such a great job. Would highly recommend that. And I'll talk more into that in a minute. Here's one of the things that we said, and even y'all earlier on mentioned that there are so many different podcasts that are out there right now, specifically in our field. One of the things that I will say, and I listened to the podcast that just dropped this morning, right, Hannah?
Yeah,
Morning?
Mike Report.
And
McClure.
yes, I was only able to listen to the first little part of it and some of the intros. Y'all mentioned something of it being a little weird sometimes to throw out RecLess and your own podcast and
Yeah.
feeling like
Yeah.
that's self-promoting and things like that. And here's one of the things that as an active listener and as what I have talked about with some other people that have been active listeners, one thing that really impacts me and what I get out of this show is number one, y'all and a lot of people that are coming on are obviously making waves in this field in one area or the next, right? One of the things that I feel like really takes this, and it's very genuine in the sense that I don't think that y'all even understand of as you're talking through these episodes, is what we're getting out of it, and it's paying it forward even still as listeners or as people that are just talking, is the way that y'all are able to pull back the curtain on a lot of things. Spouse episode is one. Hardships that people face. You have all these people that are coming on that have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, and we go to conference and we talk about people. We don't always see the dark side of Parks and Recreation or the struggles that people have had to go through to get to where they are. I say spouse because I just listened to that one in full. I've listened to it a couple of times of it's the struggle as a spouse, right? And we don't ever talk about that. And it's a struggle sometimes of where people are going into their careers and how they get in the spotlight, and you hear about them and they have so much knowledge and they've really been through the ringer and they've really struggled with a lot of scenarios. So all this to say, I would actively challenge y'all to create more awareness and to really use yourselves and spotlight it, because the impact that y'all are making on us listeners too, and being able to relate to a lot of these things that never gets discussed in passing and conversation at conferences unless you have a mentor, and some people don't have mentors. Tell more, talk more about it, and create that awareness, because that's something that at least I have not been able to find in a lot of other podcasts. That's my 2 cents.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. We've had a lot of conversations about mentors, and you just said it, Katie, like someone may not have one. And I would challenge anyone that ever listens to this or any episode, if you don't have one and you want one, like reach out to myself, Tom, Jay, Katie, like we will find you one. If it's not us ourselves, like we will find you one that's in your state, in your area, in your region, in your specific area of profession, whether it's aquatics or athletics or park planning. Like we'll take care of that, because that's, crucial to growth and development. And, we want to be that hand that can help you get there if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I'll take that a step further too. And at least for most of the guests that I've brought on, but I could probably assume it's the same for yours. This isn't a typical presentation or educational session where at the end of the show we give out people's contact information. But heck, if you reached out to us, all of our guests would be more than willing to take an email or a call from anybody. So, I would have no problem connecting people to the guests, or hey, just look them up and reach out to them. They're great people.
Yeah.
I think we've been fortunate, Katy, that I think all of us have been on other podcasts, and you get a series of questions ahead of time, and it feels at times like it comes off a little bit of canned answers. And the cool thing about this is the host, only the active host knows who they're bringing on. The rest of us are just along for the ride. And there's never at any moment that I am aware of been anything off the record. I've never had any of my folks that I'm bringing on say, hey, by the way, don't bring up, that I used to work here, or don't bring up this. Like, this has become a spot where conversation happens. It's a podcast because that's the format, but what it is really is conversations. It is a spot where conversation happens. And man, I think you learn so much from conversations, having conversations, being on both sides, Jay and I being on the both sides of every issue, and me getting to understand Jay better and Jay understanding my perspective better, and rarely agreeing, but walking away respecting both sides of it and understanding it. There's a lot of education in those spots. And what I love about this podcast, and what we all kind of thought it would be, is us three in particular have had really cool conversations with really cool people that we're now bringing on the show. But we've walked away from those at NRPA saying, man, I wish everyone could have heard what we just heard, and that was in some ways the genesis of what this is let's bring some really cool people on. Let's ask them some really deep and fun, quirky questions, and get to know a little bit more about them. And the education that comes from that has been really cool.
Agreed. That vulnerability really sets it apart. And again, you do have those deep conversations, but you hit the nail on the head of not everyone gets to hear those. And by y'all having some of those hard conversations, even on air, or not talking about all the glitz and glam of things that we do, really, really hits home. And so to further even show the impact that y'all have, we're going to look at some numbers.
Okay.
Right? So, which, side note, my husband, y'all may not think you're as popular as you are now, having commercials on here, right? Solid work, friends, and having sponsors. That's awesome. My husband, who is an extreme introvert, and I know that y'all find that hard to believe because he's a very different person at conference, but he has said of like, oh my God, people are looking me up on LinkedIn and I don't know what to do. And they're Parks and Rec people.
It's awesome.
That's happened to us as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's cool.
I haven't enjoyed that much either.
He said over 100 in the past 2 weeks.
Look at that.
Alone.
That's
Look
crazy.
at that.
That's cool.
Crazy.
So
That's really cool.
we're now on the 43rd episode. So in 42 episodes, over 3 different platforms, y'all have had over 14,600 plays.
That's pretty impressive.
Not only do you have active followers from the United States, but you also have active followers in Germany, New Zealand, Belgium, Ireland, Jamaica, Canada, and Djibouti.
Yeah, we're big in Djibouti.
Yeah.
Yes, you have.
That's the one.
You have a
That's
couple
the
of
shirt,
followers.
right? RecLess podcast
We're-
on the back.
we're
of
big
it.
in
Yes,
Djibouti.
in Djibouti. Yes.
Oh.
Oh my gosh,
Oh,
it's
no.
perfect. I want one of those. I want one of those shirts. That has to happen.
That's hilarious.
Uh,
All of this, right? Y'all have come such a long way. I think, especially, I've heard y'all talk about how y'all have even been surprised that it's come this far, right? You never expected it. This was something fun. So I'm going to take and pull back the curtain a little bit on what goes into this podcast. About how many hours do each of you put into this each week, with logistics, individual roles? Tell me more.
should we let Hannah go first? I feel like we
It'll
might not
look
pull
like she's doing
the
much
same.
more
I was gonna
than
say, I don't
we
know
should
if we
pull
probably
the
say-
same
we
way.
should probably
Yeah.
go first.
Oh, Hannah's
y'all
going
should-
last
y'all should
to
go
mic drop.
first.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
go ahead. You want to go?
Sure. I don't know what these two gentlemen put into the process of of recruiting guests. But, from the beginning, obviously that might have taken a little bit of time, right? When we had gotten up the website and the Zoom and all that. But I managed the LinkedIn account. So, and sometimes not to the level that Shane would like. So, but
True story.
yeah, this is true. So anyhow, so with that might be, that's not that much, right? That's maybe 5 or 10 minutes a week trying to work through highlighting the latest episode, typically on a Monday after it was released on a Friday. Not always on a Monday, but we try. As far as the episodes themselves, if I'm the host, it's kind of I do a little bit of a pre-episode check-in with my guests, or guests plural, as we had from our spouse episode. And that's usually the day before, or maybe even that morning, 15, 20 minutes. And then the show, even though we record for about an hour, we're probably, I would think you guys would agree with this, it's about 2-hour commitment.
Yeah.
Each show, we're hopping on, we're talking for a little bit, pre-episode minutia that most people don't hear, and then we kind of jibber jabber a little bit after we close out
Turkey
about
calls, things like that.
yeah. Yep. So I don't know. I think on a weekly basis, and then you might add in a few recruiting emails, recruiting calls. Hey, and that changes for me. When I did that for season 2, I knocked it all out in like 2 days. I spent about 6 hours emailing and going back and forth over maybe a 2-week span to get 50% of our guests, which I didn't realize at the time was frowned upon. Shane and Jade had to fill in all of the blanks because I was pretty proactive.
More than 50.
Yeah. So either way, I would say if you probably average it out, maybe it's about 3-hour commitment a week for me.
Right, fair. Jay, what do you got?
Well, I think it's actually changed between season 1, season 2, and going into season 3. And it's funny because I think our first season, I was very intentional with who we brought on as guests. And then in season 2, it was a little bit more like outside the box. And in season 3, I have like new plans. So I plan on doing things a little bit differently, reaching a little bit further down the path, because I have some goals that I want to set, and that'll take more time. So my whole point of saying all that, it's going to be more time consuming. We've had some amazing guests. We've had a lot of strong leaders that people are very familiar with around the country. But I think I want to dig a little bit deeper in the future of maybe some unsung heroes that people don't know of, and some positions that people aren't too familiar with, and departments that people aren't familiar with.
Harbor Master.
That'll take a little bit more time.
Yes, the Harbor Master.
So I don't, other than when I'm hosting, there's not a lot of time that I'm spending, doing LinkedIn posts other than what I write on my LinkedIn post. So definitely not as much time as Tom, unless I'm hosting that week.
For me, there's some small admin stuff that I do. It doesn't take much time, but I'm the one that sets up the link that we all find, and I email it to everyone, make sure it's on our calendars. And I mostly manage our RecLess podcast on Google Sheets. I'm the most anal of the group, so I'm always color coordinating it and making sure we've got things, what dates we're pulling off or on. Those things are nominal. Before every podcast, I take Hannah's laptop that I'm on right now, and I hook up directly to our Ethernet. And we have like a 50-foot cord, because I'm in our bedroom and I have to run it all the way into the living room. And I hook that up, and then I make sure I'm on the call first, and I greet whatever host is hosting, because we're recording not in the cloud, but locally to this computer. So none of y'all can do this. So I have the Zoom Link Pro or whatever that allows us to do multiple meetings a month. So we use my account on Zoom. I use Hannah's computer. I greet y'all, and then I make sure we're connected. So even if the Wi-Fi goes out, the Ethernet's still working. And so hopefully we don't have a drop in recording. And then I step away, and y'all bring us all back on if it's one of y'all. So 15 minutes or so before y'all are hopping on, I'm trying to get this setup ready. After everyone hops off, I babysit the recording to make sure it records, and then I file it in a way that Hannah wants it on this laptop, so I don't get screamed at by her. Save it the way she wants it saved, and put it in the folder she wants it to be saved in. So when she's ready to edit, she's not looking or searching for it. It's in one spot every time, which was easier for her. So I have an extra 15 minutes on the front end and the back end So it's probably 2.5 hours for me, if it's 2 hours for everyone else. But it's the best part of my week. I enjoy the whole process, and the comments we get back from people make it a real labor of love, I guess. It's something that I think all of us enjoy doing, so.
Yeah, before Hannah goes, I just want to add, I think people might be curious about the whole fact that this is a surprise podcast. And what does that mean for day of? So Shane told you all about basically the process of Zoom, right? He gets on, he then lets whoever the host is for that day, if it's not him, know, hey, I'm ready.
Mic check. See,
Yeah,
everything's
we
ready,
do a
yep.
little bit of a testing, and then how do we keep it a surprise, right? So, and we have had at least one guest, Atuya, who was scheduled to be with Jay the week after he was on
Yeah.
our show, and he kept it a secret. Jay had to scramble.
Michael Beanstein with you.
Yeah. But that I had a couple months lead time to fix that one. So yeah, the day of portion is pretty fun too, because I'm typically texting my guests like, hey, just don't hop on. Just don't hop on. Shane is here. We got to get our thing, because we send them an invite with the link just like you would for a Zoom, but they can't get on there. They can't get on because they run the risk of Shane seeing who it is. So
and
just
if I don't make you a host when I leave,
Yep.
that person, you can't let them on. So I've got to make sure I make you the host. I've got to
Yes.
make sure I hit record, which I failed to do one time, which
So
I'm
yeah,
sure I'll hear about in this recap. So there are things on the admin side.
a lot of little logistics to make sure that we keep the essence of the show and the secret alive. And then one of the Shane mentioned being the best part of the week. I couldn't agree more. And typically my guest almost every time after our episode will shoot me a text or an email like 10 minutes, an hour later, 2 hours later, just saying thank you. I had such a great time. Mike McCarty, we talked about earlier, themes. If I could give his a theme, it was just humble success. Super humble and super successful. He called me 2 hours later. We were on our way to a AAA baseball game. We're in traffic, and he just, like a lot of people text and email, and I appreciate anything. Whatever appreciation you give. I mean, this wasn't about that. It's about getting your word out. But he called, he took the time and had such great things to say. He was so thankful to be there. So it's just a great relationship and kind of networking opportunity as well to work with the guests. I always enjoy that. It's one of my favorite parts.
Well, I will say that this podcast doesn't come together without a lot of teamwork, and hopefully everybody can see that, because I do have more time put in on the back end of editing and distributing and making sure that it gets out to everyone every week. And that does take me a little bit of time. I spend probably 5 or 6 hours a week listening back through and editing and cutting and all the things, and then making sure that it's loaded into all the different platforms to go out. But with that said, none of this works if we don't all contribute and pull our weight. And obviously, as I showed just a little bit ago, I'm not very good on screen. So thank goodness that you guys are here, because no one would be listening if it was me trying to do this. So it's very much a team effort, and it's a labor of love, and something that we've been really excited to be able to see the success of it and to be able to put it out for other people. So.
And Hannah, after she edits it, she sends it to like a quality control chat, which there are a couple people on there to have a chance to listen to it one time through, if they get a chance to give us any feedback before it posts live. And
yeah. Melissa is at least 2,000 of the 14,000 views
right
that we've had. So
Well, and I'll also say Hannah once again is underselling herself and not showing the badass lady that she is, because especially, and this is something that I did not know, but makes my friend even more impressive, is that in our PA last year, there was, y'all were able to sit on Shane's favorite, a panel.
Yeah.
And a panel session. And one of the things that I did not realize, it makes this project even, I guess, more hands-on and more time consuming, because y'all say a couple hours during the week, but y'all are also constantly talking about this on the back end all the time and saying, oh, wait, we may need to change this, or how does this filter look, or what does this look like? And Hannah, especially too, is a lot of times in podcasts, it's typically, is it fair to say, for the most part, you send off your recordings and it's edited by somebody else. Mm-hmm. Right? And then it comes back. Everything is all in-house with y'all. Hannah Banana, right?
That's right. That's for sure.
Like, the rock star of, so Hannah may not be, and Hannah's listening to these like 5 or 6 times each individual episode, right? Trying to,
This
and
is
if
true.
somebody has to say and listening after they've listened it and sent it out to the preview, if they come back and say, "Oh, we might really need to cut this," then she has to go back in. So wanting to also highlight that, because that's even more hands-on, because she's also to the team aspect of it. I know sending it and having conversations with y'all on the back end of saying, hey, this was what said, this is how we're going to transition it, all this type of stuff. And not to mention all the marketing things that she's creating, of clips that she's pulling and the visuals that are
Yeah.
creating. So like this all of like, it goes, each of you really undersell it. Hannah Banana the most, I feel like, in my opinion, only because of it's so time consuming and so impressive. But y'all, like, this is awesome. And knowing that everything is in house and y'all have such hands on in and out every single episode is really cool. And another thing for me that sets apart and shows how much passion that y'all have just in general.
And
for
Hannah's
this.
turnaround time, we always try to like build in some turnaround time for her, and then we have a cancellation to her. So, like a week ago today, we did Mike Clark, and it's out today.
Yeah.
Like
Amazing.
she, and all the pregnant pauses and the ums, and when I say someone's name wrong or whatever, she edits all that out. So, I mean, what you're hearing, if we didn't have her, we would just be posting our raw live thing, and it would be terrible and no one would listen. So
Are you sure? I thought we were just really good at talking. We say and
we are not.
make
we are not
sounds.
really good at talking.
It's funny. I'll listen back to a few and I'll pick up where Hannah like did fill the gap that like we might have had like a blank space of time, and I'm like, man, Hannah's good.
Yep. Makes it
So,
sound
yes.
like it was just like boom. Yep.
Yeah, one of my favorite, I really love where we've gone, Hannah's taken us into the social media world of Facebook and Instagram. I get a kick out of some of the clips. I mean, not just the clips, obviously highlighting our guests. We all know about that. I know this is selfish and nobody wants to hear this, but I really enjoy the cold opens and hearing and seeing our interactions, because nobody gets to see. That's probably the biggest request I've had from people could this be a video recording?
Right.
People want to, believe it or not, see our faces and reactions. But yeah.
And we can't do it because all the editing, it would just be jumping so much. Right. So, but in the way Hannah can clip the really cool moments, put them on social, they feel like they get that.
Yep.
That's
So
been a fun part.
yeah, so in transitioning to, y'all touched a little bit on this of the speakers, and another thing is that takes time of, I know, I'm not sure if y'all do this for every single speaker, but touching base with them and having conversations of, here's what the outlines, here's some of the questions that we're going to go through. Tell me a little bit briefly of what is this method behind the madness of determining who's coming on, and is there any type of strategy that y'all use?
I think everyone has a different strategy, which is funny. We were looking at how many Academy members each of us had pulled on, and I think some of us look at people that we admire, some of us look at people that are doing creative things, and I think you can mix that all. I don't know if sometimes we're just trying to find a really engaging person. I think the mix has worked really well. For me personally, I'm just trying to highlight really cool people that I think are doing some cool things in the industry. And luckily there's so many of them that haven't even somewhat exhausted that list. I'm excited that we have season 3, season 4 coming up in the futures, because there's a lot of cool people doing a lot of cool things out there.
There's definitely a method to the madness for me, and I think if you look at some of the episodes that I host, it's in the box, out the box, and so I tend to stay in the box, but I feel like it's very important to get outside of there and do one or two, and I'd say every season. But to Jay's point, I think that's going to change a little bit, maybe the direction that we go. You don't want to get too far out, I guess. However, episode 1 of season 2 was with Dan Mason, general manager of the Rochester Red Wings. So that was one of my plans dating back to season 1. I was like, I want to do something different. I want to start to be parallel to the field, but not necessarily always in the field. And I loved that show. I know Dan, obviously, and I'm glad I got to introduce him to the world of 5 listeners, but it's really wonderful to know that there are people out there in other professions who really can relate to what we're doing in Parks and Rec and what we can take from them, how we can observe them as leaders in the field. It doesn't necessarily just have to start and end with Parks and Recreation. And the spouse episode, right? Again, going outside of the box. That's something that Hannah and I talked about going back to season 1. We wanted to do it before the conference, before NRPA conference in Dallas. Melissa's a teacher. It just wasn't working. It was very hard to pull it together. And
Hannah tried to die on us.
yep. And then, yep, exactly. So
It's really selfish. I mean, to be honest.
I know. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
We were 2 people down at that point. And when I finally talked to Melissa, I said, when are you done? Because I want to make this happen. The guys were saying, hey, we got a couple episodes less in season 2. Is there anything you want to do still? And that kind of sparked it back to my mind. And we made it happen. And that was a really tough one to coordinate, but it actually came together a lot easier than I had hoped. And I have a question for Katy, a follow-up question. We don't have to go there now because you had mentioned something about the spouse
We've already
question
talked
before.
To Katy. We've already had our Katy questions. That was episode 1.
Very
Please
relevant.
refer back to episode 1.
Last thing I'll say is that with most of our guests too, you're talking about the madness. I'm looking at, I should have some prior knowledge of those guests, right? There may be a time where I may get connected with someone and not knowing a lot about them, but I've maybe asked, hey, I want to get someone from this realm, right? That might be a direction we go in. But to this point, I've had a lot of prior knowledge of these individuals. So then when we look at our opening conversations, I've gotten to a point where I think earlier in season 1, I was just asking you guys random questions. There wasn't a whole lot of thought going into it. And now all of those opening questions tend to theme or align with like that first question or something I know really well about the guest that I want them to highlight. So I'm trying to theme those episodes so that's intentional, and obviously you might take it a different direction, Shane. Jay, you might take it a different direction with a question, but that's fine.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's a lot of times when I have a guest on that I'm hosting where that opening question, like you are not going to pick up on it right away, but there is some correlation between the question and the guest. And then in regards to the rhyme and reason on like choosing the guest, there's always different thought process behind like how I'm choosing what and when I'm choosing it. Sometimes it's timing of things. For example, we've mentioned Mike Clark's name a couple of times today, which dropped. Like he recently retired. I've known Mike for many years. He did phenomenal things when he was in Illinois, but I wanted to hear about his new business. So, it was a great topic to discuss now that he's in that business realm of, leading strategic planning and, being a consultant versus what he was doing 6 months ago would have been very different to have a conversation with him, but I knew he was going to retire in December. So it was perfect timing. And same thing when we had some guests around different conference years or different sessions that are coming out or webinars. So it's always relative to that. But I also think the overall, evolving conversation that we're having is, there's different topics, different themes, and us as professionals have changed since season 1, since episode 1. We've gotten probably more comfortable with different topics that we wouldn't have talked about the first 5-10 episodes, but now things are very, more comfortable and we're more willing to kind of take that risk and take that challenge because we need to. And if we don't do it, who else is going to do it? So it's always going to evolve. And that's why I mentioned it earlier with, season 3 kind of going in a different direction in some capacity with new guests as well. And looking forward to see where it goes.
And Hannah, so do you ever bounce ideas around with Shane or have anyone that you drop little nuggets to any of the guys of
She
like,
tells me shit all the time. All the time.
Listen.
I'm like, they would be a cool person. Or
I do that quite a lot. Or say, have you thought about this? Or who do we know that does this? Whatever it is. Yeah, I mention things to Shane all the time. And he always says, woman. No, he doesn't. Just kidding.
Don't come after me, Wypar.
I've heard him. I've heard you say that. True.
He says it in the most endearing way. There we go.
Endearing woman.
Lovely woman.
Lovely woman. That's right. So I always enjoy seeing the way that that the show ends up, whether we mean for it to or not, it always ends up having a theme, which is always really cool because I pick up on that whenever I'm editing and going through. And so it's really cool to be able to see how that goes. I mean, because you could basically talk to every single person about the exact same thing. And you guys have done a really great job of picking out different aspects of their career and highlighting different things that people are really, really good at. And obviously our listeners are enjoying learning about. So
this time we're going to start with Hannah Banana. And what has impacted you most through this experience?
I think probably what's impacted me the most has been how engaged our listeners have become. That's been a really cool aspect to see as the guys are always like sending back and forth different messages of people, whether it's a text or an email or somebody reaching out, or they've mentioned it in a different place, the different opportunities that have come available to the guys from them doing this, and other people want to hear about them and what they're doing, and the impact that we're making on other professionals has been really, really cool. So I think that's, for me, the most exciting part of it. It makes me not be upset to spend hours every week to do this.
So that
And I
helps,
buy her
right?
all the wine she wants, so that helps.
That too.
Yes.
I think for me, and Tom and Jay and I have talked about this. I'm very proud of my career accomplishments. So we started this podcast for really selfish reasons. I think, at least for me, the idea that I pitched it was I just wanted to talk to these guys more with somebody else. Like, we have a great relationship. We like giving each other a hard time. Let's do this more often. We only used to see each other at conference, and then we'd play fantasy football, or we're in a chat here or there. And our relationship has grown over the years for sure. And I thought it made a lot of sense. It reminded me a lot of SmartLess when I saw the documentary. I was listening to SmartLess for a long time, but when I saw a documentary, I was like, man, they have a relationship kind of like we have. I think it'd be fun to do this. But I wouldn't say I thought there was this space in the podcast world that needed it, and we were here to fill it. I was just trying to have some cool conversations with guys I really enjoy having conversations with, and maybe seeing if anyone else had any interest in it. What it's become is, it could be the biggest thing we have ever done. You know, career-wise, I think people look back at our career and it'll be something people say, especially if it continues to happen for, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons or whatever. And that's incredible to think, because all the three of us have had a really great career. I think we're all very proud of the accomplishments we've had and the impact we've had on the industry. And to think that this may be the thing that most people think of when they think of us someday is, for me, it's been something that it's been almost very humbling. Like, oh, I didn't realize that was the space we're in. And it makes me Vanguard more, making sure, I mean, we obviously have a lot of fun with this and we don't take it super seriously necessarily, but we care about its impact for sure. And we appreciate hearing those impact stories. We appreciate, I sent the guys an email and said, I'm going to quit this stupid podcast because someone from a neighboring state asked me to speak, and they specifically asked me to speak because they heard me on RecLess. And I was like, all right, that's enough. I don't ever want to do this again. But we seem to get a note now, at least one note a week, if not more, from one person or another, just saying, hey, I heard your podcast, or this connected, or I enjoy this episode so much, or that so much. And that's a really cool byproduct that I did not expect.
Tom, I'm going to take this because Shane hit it on the head. I don't think we ever thought about the impact that this was going to have, and nor did we really get into it for that reason. The whole premise of this came from an idea from Shane. Shane texted Tom and I and said, hey, I got a crazy idea. And I said, let's hear it. And Tom said, let's hear it. And
I ghosted you.
Yeah, pretty much. Told us he had an idea, but didn't tell us about it for about 3 weeks. But long story short, I did not ever think about the impact this was going to make. And Shane said it right on. We get an email, a text, a call, or even when I see people in person. I was in a meeting about 2 weeks ago with some staff from a neighboring department here in North Carolina. And they said, oh, I listened to, this episode, that episode, it was great. We never expected that. I didn't expect that. And, we talk about the impact that we make as professionals, being able to provide services and events and programs and after school programs, all these different things. And like, those things are great, but they're typically short-term, 1 day, 1 week. They're not something that's going to be around for extended period of time. This can live on for as long as we want it to, or as long as it's going to. So people that are in the field now might listen to it. People that are going to graduate from college next year and pursue Park and Rec could get into it next year. And to think about that is pretty impactful and pretty special. And we've just really started tipping like what we can do with this. I think there's still, and Shane mentioned it earlier, the list of folks that we can reach out to and have on here is endless. The people that would make phenomenal guests that I can think of off the top of my head without even like really thinking about it is phenomenal. I know Tom could do the same thing, pulling people, and Shane will do the same thing. So, there's so many more people that can make a difference that we talk to. And it's really special. I mean, I know when we had the spouses episode, there was a question at the end about like, hey, what's one thing that, we don't know about your spouse? And like Lindsay said it, like I can be very sensitive, and I'll even tell like a very, very quick story. When I worked with Katy, I had decided to leave the position as director in Indian Trail. Like I had to pull the team together, and like it might not have been a big deal to tell people, hey, I'm leaving, I'm going somewhere else. But like it was really hard for me, and I was like straight up crying like a baby. Like I just
Is there video of that?
just straight
Oh my
lost.
God. Between
And-
the both of us, we could not even like look at each other for like an entire week. And like our team, it was hard because our team is like, oh my God, are they dying? Like what is
Yeah.
happening? Yeah.
And and it's funny because like there's other people in the room that like maybe felt the same emotion that I felt, but then there's others that are like, why is he crying? It's not a big deal.
Right.
But like that's just, I get very serious about some things and emotional and sensitive about it. And like this is an area that like when I do think about it, it's really special. And it was never intended to be as impactful as it can be or it has been, just getting some random notes, text, and email. So, Shane, I don't know if I've ever really said it, but thank you for thinking of this. And it's been a lot of fun.
Be hard to follow that, Jay. And your emotional side just came through again. So now I've got to just come in here and
Every time.
How do I get the balloons? I need the balloons to come up after Jay said, come
Thank
on,
you.
dude, nothing's coming up.
So I really want to ask Katy the question, and I also want to answer her question. That what Jay mentioned about what Lindsay said about him and Melissa telling people that I'm high energy and make turkey sounds, all that fun stuff, right? You said, Katy, pulling back the curtain and being vulnerable, and we've done that for our guests, but it's also done that for us, which is different for me on this level, not being like that at just at home, but I guess forward facing to the public in a setting like this. Before I give my answer, and it's going to be very brief because you guys answered it so well. Katy, I need to ask the question. Josh copped out. He copped out and he said that we would not know anything. There's nothing about you we
Farts in
wouldn't
her
know.
sleep, something.
And I don't
Just say
think that that's
something.
true.
Which
So
I was
now
surprised he didn't say.
So now I'm putting you on the spot. Answer the question that Josh refused.
Oh my God.
What is something that our listeners and we would not know about Katy Keller?
He came out and he came out of it. And first of all, y'all had sent the screenshot in the thing, and I was in a meeting and I got out after everything was done, and I saw these screenshots in our group, and I was like, oh shit, like what? I'm slightly terrified of what's happening. And so then we were unpacking it and everything, and he said this, and he was like, and they told me that it was like, they asked this question, and I could not for the life of me think of something. And that was the first thing that I said, Shane, which is funny because I was like, that I fart in my sleep, like what like whatever,
Yeah.
like
Say
and
something.
anything or whatever. And I was shocked that he didn't. He was like, the problem is you probably already told him that. So like, he's like, he's like, you are a pretty open book. And so later on that night, like it was like a very random, he was like, I know. And I was like, what? And
Here we
he
go.
was like, it's really not that great. Apparently, or supposedly I should say, is I am an active and pretty annoying sleep talker and walker. So
Wow.
that was his thing that he was like, if I could have said it, because my son inherited that from me, and he's like, man, you've always slept talk, but then there have now been times over the past couple of years that I've actually been walking around as well. And
Listen, knowing you awake, that totally connects with what I would assume you're like asleep.
I can't
Yes.
even imagine the things you would say asleep.
yes, and he is like, he will tell me, and I didn't think it was that bad. He was like, oh my God, it's so bad. He was like, especially the sleep talking, like it is all the time. Like I just had one the other week that I got up and I was like, oh no, here we go again. And Josh was like, what? And I was like, I don't know what we're gonna do. And I just face planted back on the bed and just was like, it's over. And he's like, go to bed. Like,
Love it.
it's just this random, I order food in my sleep. I do all the things.
Wow.
So that
That's
would be one
amazing.
thing. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right. Okay. All right. Let me go back. I want to go back and that impact question for me. And I agree with Jay and Shane. You know, I didn't know really what it was. I felt selfish as well. I felt like this was just a way for us to connect and hold myself accountable for staying in touch with people, which is not my strong suit, right? You know, it's very hard. We get wrapped up in what we're doing. Everybody that does what we do probably feels a little bit of that. It's very hard to step away and just take a call from someone who's not right there under your responsibility at all times. So for me, it's helped me on that way. That's the impact it's made on me personally, is just being able to make the time. And, you know, I always say, just show up to these types of opportunities and engagements, because you never know what you're going to hear, what you're going to learn. And so that leads into basically the impact that we didn't maybe see this happening or see what the impact would be like for other individuals. And to say it best without saying more of what Jay and Shane, I want to read you all something from a fan, I guess, a regular listener. So when I look at LinkedIn and I see the individuals who comment, sure, we've got the Katy Kellers, our friends, the people that we know who, you know, Ryan Hegrenus is, he'll back it up and say, hey, Ann Beck's awesome, right? Well, we know those individuals and we appreciate your support. There's other individuals that we don't know, though. And that's where it gets to a whole nother level. And that's what we're trying to do in our day jobs. We're trying to make an impact in people's lives, something that they can take with them wherever they go, or leave everything behind, and then come out of it a little bit better, right? Come out of from our event or whatever program they are on the other side in a better place. And Trista Taylor, Deputy Parks and Recreation Director, Village of Cottage Grove, Wisconsin, Whitewater. She regularly will comment or reach out, and she shared the spouse episode, and I loved her caption. So I'm just going to read it. Sharing because the RecLess podcast is great. Got some good laughs out of this episode. If you're asking my daughter what her mom does for a living, she's 6. Her answer is, my mom is just like Leslie Knope, with a heart emoji.
That's a character on TV, Jay.
Yes. It's a Parks and Rec show too, Jay. Interesting.
Good to know.
And yes, the last sentence was, my family is along for this Parks and Rec life. And I love that, right? That was the whole premise of this episode with the spouses, was to say, there's a whole nother side to this, right? Everybody has a partner or family in their life that have to, I don't know if put up is the right way to say, but put
endure.
up with endure and go along with it. And what a great sentiment that Trista shared. And that, you know, it just means a whole lot to me that someone could take that and really relate and resonate to what we're putting out there for, you know, for anybody to consume. And the last point, or the last little short story that I'll share, again, upon that impact, Shane actually shared this with me. We recently, the state of New York, or New York State Recreation and Park Society, put out a scholarship for young professionals similar to what NRPA does. And I have some people within the state society that judge, but I also ask a lot of great individuals that I really respect, such as all of you, right? So Shane, Katy, Jay, and then I believe 4 others from around the country helped judge the submissions. And one of the actual essay responses mentioned a quote from RecLess, which was really, and it wasn't from us. It wasn't Shane said this or Jay said this or Tom said it. Shane, who did they reference? Can you recall that?
I don't recall. No, Jody Adams?
I think it was Jody.
Jody Adams. I think.
Yes. So pretty
Which
cool.
is a pretty good one to recall.
Yes, it is.
Probably.
But pretty amazing to think that someone's utilizing a quote from RecLess in a scholarship essay.
Yeah.
I saw that too, and I was like, oh, they got bonus points.
Well, yeah, they definitely knew, at least, but I wasn't judging. You know, I was excluding. They wouldn't have known that Shay or Jay were on the panel.
I think that's been interesting. I haven't known what to necessarily do with the compliments, because it definitely wasn't something we were seeking. And so I appreciate every one of them. Still surprised by them that anyone's really listening to us, but you know, they're great to receive.
So would that be, this kind of channels into the next question that I have is, would you say that would be one of the most challenging parts of this whole process, or what is your most challenging part?
Yeah, for me, people pick up on, people are getting to hear Tom, Jay, and I's voice, our thought process, passions, and explanations, and they feel like they know us, and then they reach out to us or they see us. And I don't want to say I'm not the same person in real life, because I think I am trying to be the same person wherever I am, but I am introverted. I'm probably not someone that's going to reach out and talk to you, or if you reach out to me, I'm going to be very nice about it. I'm going to try to engage best I can. But if you come up to me and talk to me about the podcast, I'm not going to know what to say, and they've heard hours potentially of our voice and our thoughts and the way we even like our pacing, and they feel like they really know us, and they know a lot about us. But I don't know a lot about them, and so I'm trying to engage with them, and I'm trying to fill that spot, because I don't want it to be awkward, and I don't want their only interaction with us to be, negative. And so when people come up and say, "Hey, I heard the podcast, or it was a great episode," or "What'd you think about this," or whatever, that's probably pretty challenging, because it's some ways not, it's the least of what I thought I'd be talking to somebody about, so.
There's a lot of quotes out there about loving what you do, and I absolutely love what I do on a daily level. This is a whole different level, and I enjoyed this thoroughly, and Shane, you said it's the best part of your week. It absolutely is. I don't know if we intentionally put it on a Friday in the beginning, but what a great way to get into the weekend. There's a lot that goes through our minds on a weekly basis, and this is how we wrap it all up. And it's usually such a positive, right? So the challenge of, actually putting time and effort isn't really a challenge. However, for me, I think we are busy people, right? And time and sustaining the level that we've tried to really place on ourselves. And I feel like we've set a pretty high bar. We're kind of demanding on ourselves, like every Friday, and we're good, up before the season. We'll definitely black out some dates that maybe a vacation or a holiday or something like that. But you just never know what's going to come up. There's been times where it's been really, really challenging, where it's like, I don't know if I should be somewhere else. So that's a challenge. There's some internal struggles there where I'm sometimes on shows thinking about what I left behind, or what I feel like I should be dealing with, because, and maybe that's not fair. Maybe that's a high standard to hold yourself to. But yeah, sustaining the commitment. We talked about that commitment earlier in this episode. I think that's a challenge, and I'm confident that the desire and passion to want to do this will supersede and trump that. But I do think about that.
Yeah, I think for me, it's not always the case, but sometimes the big challenge is keeping it a secret. And that's, we talked about the process earlier with the guests, being a secret to only knowing who the host is. And that's come up a couple of times where it might have slipped, or it's very close to slipping. And, we have had a lot of guests on this show that we're all friends with. So it's like making sure that person knows, like, hey, if you talk to Tom, you talk to Shane, do not tell them you're the guest this week. And, there's some folks that I have to worry about, some folks I don't, because, I know with some of the guests, you may not know them at all, or you may not talk to them as regularly as you do, Michael Biedenstein or Katie or Nile. So, but that is always in the back of my mind, because that is what makes a lot of this as fun as it is and as organic as it is, because you don't know who it's going to be. And I don't know who it's going to be when you guys are hosting. So that's always something on the back of my mind that, man, I can't slip up, can't make sure they have any hints, because I don't want them to know who it is.
I get so disappointed when I can't guess who it is. It drives me insane.
Yeah. Well, and okay, so back to the same question. There's been a couple times where I'm hosting and I give like 2 hints and you know it right away. And I don't want that. I want it to go to the distance.
Right.
And that's what also makes it more fun, is when I can go through 5 or 6 or 7 hints and you don't know who it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my goal.
I'm a parks nerd. I'm a consumer of parks. I'm looking at people doing cool things in the industry. I'm hearing about stories. I'm asking other people if they know people are doing stuff. And so I do feel like I know of a lot of people and kind of know things about them. And so, man, especially when it gets all the way through and I freaking know them, I'm like, God, why did I not guess who that was? It drives me insane.
Yeah.
Hannah, what you got?
I would say probably the same as Tom's, just the sustainability of devoting time to making sure that I'm getting it done, although I've gotten a lot faster. So I really don't have any of the challenges that they do. I just work on the stuff when they're finished.
I feel like that's challenging and overwhelming all in itself.
I mean,
When you-
she's got to deal. There's a challenge in itself of dealing with Shane, right?
That's right.
And then the
Three.
You know, I would say, yeah,
Three
maybe the
people.
most challenging, maybe wrangling the three of you guys.
I was just
sometimes.
gonna
Yeah.
say
It's probably, yeah.
we have these group chats, and we didn't talk about that in the time we put into it. But yeah, there's a lot that goes in
Yeah.
behind the scenes. Yes,
sometimes I
Hannah
just
has to.
throw, yeah, I just throw things out there, and then I'm like, hey guys, what are we doing with this? And then I just let y'all
She
attack each
sometimes-
other and figure it out.
You know,
I
Okay.
step back and watch the show.
So with this next part, in 2 sentences or less, because I know that we're getting out there with time. We still have a couple things I want to do.
we can edit it.
What has been the most surreal moment for y'all?
I mean, to piggyback what I just said, I think in some ways, these guys know I don't like public speaking. I don't engage it. I don't seek it. If someone asks me to speak, I have a tough time saying no. But if I know them, if I don't know them, it's pretty easy for me. But we spoke at NRPA on the podcast, specifically about the podcast, and we had only done like 4 or 5 episodes at that time. I'm speaking in Minnesota, not for podcasting. I was going to go speak with John because these two knuckleheads left him high and dry. Band of Brothers, rent it sometime. While I'm there, they were like, oh, well, Shane's coming up. Let's have him talk about podcasting. And then, like I said, Oklahoma reached out to me, and it's nerve-wracking in some ways because the only thing this group knows about me is what they hear on this podcast, my thoughts or whatever. And they're like, okay, we want Shane to come speak. And Shane the speaker and Shane the podcaster are 2 different people, and so now I'm like, oh crap, I've got to figure out what I'm going to say. And it's about young professional development. And you'd think I'd be able to talk about that, but I don't know. And so I think it's just, I interacted with the Parks and Rec industry in the way I wanted to do it. And I could come off as a prick, or I could be quiet, or I could be aloof, and I could be close with the people I want to be close with, and I could avoid the socials and other things. And this has kind of put us out there in such a way that I'm exposed. I didn't want the guys sharing my name on LinkedIn at first. I didn't want a bunch of other people being able to find me because of it. And, I've gotten over that in that sense. But, you just kind of have, you splay yourself out. You put yourself as you're exposed. So that's something I've had to get over for sure.
I'm pretty sure Katie said
7
2
sentences? Was
I
that
was about to
7,
say,
8?
that-
I'm not listening to rules.
You guys
Yeah.
are gonna fail these next games. Okay.
This happens all the time on the show. It's like we can never get him. He's done it once.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I could say that anything's felt super surreal. I guess I'm humble in that matter. I did really enjoy that session at NRPA. That was interesting, and maybe I will go, kind of go deeper into that. We had Hannah in the room, which was crazy, right? Like, so we're up there, and we've been doing a podcast for how long was it? 3 months?
5 or 6 episodes.
5?
It
Yeah.
was only I think we released the first 5.
So, I guess that felt surreal in the sense that what do we know about podcasting? And it was so much fun, going up there and speaking with, our friends from Minnesota and Michigan. Anthony was there at that point in time representing Michigan, Anthony Araki. So I think that was surreal. That room was full. That's the other part. What did you expect? I don't know that there's been any NRPA podcast sessions before, right? That probably was the first that they've had, I would guess. And yeah, it was a full room. They had to put the little sign on the door saying it's full, which, by the way, it was a handwritten sign. I think NRPA, I hate to
Anthony
criticize,
did
but
it.
I think, okay, Anthony
Who
did
knows?
that.
I'm just kidding. I don't know.
There's got to be some kind of official sign for that.
He did it for the gram.
So, yeah, I think that whole NRPA conference in general was surreal because we did have people, to Shane's point, come up and talk to us. And, sometimes I think we could tell that there were people who, because we only had a few episodes, who definitely listened.
Yeah.
We definitely could tell there were some people who said, hey, it's a great podcast. And then
You
they would
haven't
start talking
listened.
like, you haven't listened to a word of this based on it would later come out in conversations. They had no idea that it was a surprise guest. Anyway, so yeah, that might be the most surreal for me.
I would agree with the NRPA session for sure. But the other thing that came to mind when you asked this question was probably, and Tom, you can remind me on the date because you were there, but we were in a webinar for the Academy about, I want to say 6 or 7 months ago. And there's a group of probably 20 or 30 of us.
Thanks for the invite.
And you were not there. You got the invite.
You were
just don't
invited.
come. And, there's a lot of people that we all truly respect to what they've done in this industry. And Rosalind Johnson was one of them that was talking. And she actually gave RecLess a shout out. And this was not prompted. We did not ask for this. This was just very organic. And it was, it happened more than once in this occurrence on this webinar where speakers or leaders in this day were actually talking about it. And they saw Tom and I were there and they referenced it. And it was like, man, like that means that some of these folks that we look up to, that we admire, are listening to this. And we didn't ask for that. We didn't, we're not plugging this in any capacity other than putting it on LinkedIn. And it was kind of neat because, it obviously, once someone that has a lot of followers or has a lot of respect in our industry says something, like they might then go look into that. So, hearing other people talk about it that at the time may not have been a guest or may not have been on the show was, very surreal for me that it's getting out to more people than I realized.
Rosalind actually made a plug for that at the MRPA conference as well, in that room that we were in with their kind of, what was that, the presidential suite. They had a little social. That was really neat. And just for the record,
thanks for the invite. Again.
Yes, we're going to get into that. I'm sure there's a question about that. We'll talk about invites in a moment, but just to wrap that up, for the record, when Rosalind,
these guys are living their own life without me.
When Rosalind mentioned that in the what was it, the webinar, she just said one of the hosts, Tom, was here. She didn't even mention James.
True story.
In the room. I think I still have the side text about that.
What I think is actually really funny about the whole conversation about Shane being invited to go speak is Tom and I both, we thoroughly enjoy it. I love going to speak at a conference. And Tom and I went to Maryland and we spoke, and I've gone to some others over the last couple of years. And Shane, he's given his 2 cents on his thought on it. But these states are not reaching out to Tom or I. They're reaching out to Shane, and he doesn't even want to do it.
It's brutal.
I'm not sure if I should be offended by that or if I should just, let it slide.
I can respond and say, you know what, I'm not interested, but Tom and Jay will pour themselves out to whatever state conference you'd like.
I mean, eventually we have to step brothers this. We come as a package.
That's right.
Definitely.
That's funny.
All right, Hannah, what you got?
I think the most surreal part has probably just been because I'm distributing all the things. I have access to the numbers that these guys don't ever actually look at anything. Once they've recorded it, I take care of it and send it out, and they just blissfully go along with whatever.
Great.
But,
it's a great agreement. I appreciate that.
Good trade-off. But it's been really fun to just watch the numbers grow. At first we were just on YouTube. We just had, and we have gotten quite a few views on YouTube, even whenever it was there, but watching it grow and it's been an organic growth, or because I'm doing it myself. And so I've had to figure out a lot of different things. But anyway, with that, just watching our numbers grow, watching the audience grow. We've got people literally all over the world that are listening, which is kind of cool. So I think that's probably the most surreal part, is just once again realizing what the impact is. That's been very surreal for me.
I still can't believe it. It's like I've heard people talk about it, and over 14,000, y'all. That's crazy. That's
a lot
so
of listens.
awesome.
It really is.
It's cool.
Okay, we're gonna play wordless, where less words are more. So you guys
that doesn't
going
work.
to struggle with this. Okay, so all right, in one word.
What about this? Does that work?
Yeah, that one. Nailed it. In one word, tell me, where's a place you never thought you would want to visit, but now you would consider following one of the episodes?
Djibouti.
That doesn't.
Okay.
You didn't even answer a question.
No, that's the question. Yeah, where's one place?
I would go to a state park in Florida and see the manatees after barbecue names. I'm sorry, that's too many words.
Manatees.
Yeah,
I knew this was going to fail, but I just thought it'd be funny.
Mansfield, Texas.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of post conversations with Ann Beck, and it's been fun to learn more about Mansfield.
Yeah.
I don't have one word. I can't stay within your parameters here, Katie. No, Jill Geller had so many great things to say about where she is in California now. And I'm not a real West Coast person, but I would go out there and try out some of the suggestions she gave for food and whatnot.
Oh.
I'm a road trip person. I would love to take a road trip and see some of these people. Johnny talking about like Elsinore seemed really cool.
Yeah.
Cindy talking about the lake right off of the mountains named after the chair. So to hear about some people's places have been really cool. And Djibouti, #Djibouti.
#Djibouti. What are 3 words, only 3, that you would use to describe what this podcast provides listeners? Like, what is this podcast made of? Only 3 words.
3 each or 1 word for each of us?
3 words each, but only
You're
3
already
words.
done.
No sentences.
Perspective, advice, humor.
Good. Agreed.
Inspiration, outlet, and mentorship.
It makes them feel seen.
Well,
That's not a word.
Seen's not a word.
It's
yeah.
Makes them feel seen.
That was a phrase.
Yeah. I like that.
Relevance, representation, storytelling.
Storytelling. That's not one word. So.
It's hyphenated.
One word. How do you feel about your co-host now?
Still disappointed. Hyphenated. One word.
Oh gosh.
Can I do 1 word for each one? That's totally different.
Yeah, there you go.
Even better.
1 word for each of us.
Frustrated, annoyed.
Do we get to guess?
Frustrated and annoyed.
Man, we frustrate and annoy Jay. Oh wow.
The best
wasn't
thing I've heard.
I wasn't going in those directions. But I mean, if we're gonna do 1 for each host, filterless.
Okay. Could have been the name of the podcast, actually.
Yes, filterless. Retrospective.
He thinks I'm retrospective. That's cool.
All right, Hannah, what about 1 for each of these boys?
Oh gosh, please don't. This is actually my least. This is my least favorite part of this whole
The best
experience.
Oh,
question
really?
ever.
This
My
is
favorite.
right here?
I like it.
Diva.
Okay.
God.
That's not
Jay
me.
nailed it.
You take your pick.
We're really gonna jump the shark here.
I know. Y'all are the best.
All right,
Big
Hannah's
Hold
doing
on.
the
I know.
cop out.
No,
He got mad that he got called diva, then Tom and I got called
no.
the best.
Oh wait, if Hannah's not, Hannah, are you done?
Yeah.
I want to turn the table. I want Katie to do the same thing.
Oh, for what? No.
A word
I'm
for
the
each of
host.
us.
I'm the host, Jason.
We can.
Nobody-
Hey,
Jay.
we've done this before.
Sweet baby Jay.
Yeah.
That's true.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw it out there. Man, too bad it's not Shane's favorite game of 2 Truths and a Lie, where he says like, "I hate you, I hate you, I hate you," and then they
And
have
you
to
walk
figure it
off,
out.
they have to figure
So
it out.
I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna do Badass. We all know who that one is.
Hannah.
Yes, Hannah. If you missed that, I will say Passionate. I will say Genuine, and I will say,
She hadn't mentioned me yet. It feels weird.
I'm trying to find the best word. Loyal.
Well, that's very nice.
That's what I would say.
Those are all great words.
Yep. Turd faces, all of you.
Yeah,
So-
there
or
we go.
dicks. My
Now
favorite
we've
word,
hit.
dicks.
Now we've hit. Oh, we're back, folks.
So we're going to play the most likely game. Okay. So I'm going to give you a line, and we're going to peel back the curtain even more. And y'all have to say who your answer is out of all 4 of you. Ready? All right.
No.
Biggest diva.
Tom.
Shane.
Tom.
Yeah, Tom, Shane on the board.
I would say Shane.
What?
50-50. You're a different kind
Man.
of diva. It's
Hannah?
not.
Just an asshole. That's what I am.
Hannah, you gotta go.
Oh no, I said Tom.
Oh, okay. All right. Most likely to forget they have a show to record.
Well, I
Jay.
mean, Shane already did forget to record a show.
That's an easy answer. He did not hit the button, and probably one of the best episodes we've recorded.
It
Or
really
didn't
was.
record, I guess.
Yeah.
Did record.
I would say Jay. Jay's mine.
All
I'm
right.
sure Jay didn't notice it either, and he was the host that time.
That's right. Thank
That's
you.
right. I just had your back, babe. There you go.
Okay. Most likely to make a mistake.
That's,
I mean,
that
That
feels
would be
loaded.
me.
I'll say
I mean,
me. I'm felt fair about that one.
I mean, we've all made mistakes. in
there's different types of
capacities.
mistakes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
this is just throwing it out there. Just see what would happen. Okay. Most technologically challenged.
Hannah.
We just watched me try to get on the Wi-Fi a minute ago.
I'm gonna go.
Definitely.
I mean,
I've had a few
I'm gonna go
challenges.
Jay. I'm gonna go
Jay.
Jay. You know,
Oh, I think
He had a
I think
Jason
over-
Bateman moment.
over the span, I've had, man, when we had Tom O'Rourke, it was a nightmare to get started. So I had so many challenges that day.
Okay. Most likely to challenge a statement.
Oh, that's
Jay.
me.
Jay.
Jay. He's a real D-head.
That tracks.
But-
Okay.
In response to that, Shane will not admit if there's ever like an opportunity that his thought is not correct.
Well, it just never happened. I mean, that's not fair to say. I wouldn't admit I was wrong. If I was actually wrong at some point, I would obviously say it.
Okay, now this one. All right, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this one.
This is the first time
All
you've
right.
been interested? That you just
Yes,
been
the
fucking
whole
mailing this
time.
in?
The whole time. First time, okay? So when we always get together, y'all are notorious for looking up different foodie places, and y'all even take turns going to different places to try out, right?
Yeah.
Who's the actual best foodie?
Well,
We're all going to say ourselves.
All right,
so
well, Hannah, tiebreaker. Go ahead, Jay.
I actually wouldn't say it's an easy answer, like to say myself. I think the easy answer is it's definitely not Shane because he doesn't like food outside the box. Tom and I are always open to try new things. We want to, explore different cuisines. Where Shane is like, he's not going to go want to get Thai food. He's not going to want to go.
But if you go to the places I've suggested, we've talked about them for years since. So the places I suggest, they really hit. That should
But they're
count.
always going to be the same. It's
Holman
always
and
going to be
Fitch.
barbecue or Mexican. That's it.
Mr. Mama's in Las Vegas. Like I've hit on some good spots that we've enjoyed.
But you're only going to hit the same cuisine, is my point.
Yeah, I'll agree
I'm
with
gonna say
Jay
me. Thank you,
and
me.
Shane. I'm gonna agree with you both because Shane, some of the places you've introduced me to are they're right on the mark. On the same time, the same token though, to Jay's point, I want to try different new things. And what do you call the Vietnamese sandwich? What is it? Just a carrot and
Carrot sandwich.
the banh mi is a carrot sandwich. You know what I mean? Anyway, my point is that Mr. Mama's, it wasn't that like a biscuit breakfast place. See, that doesn't do it for me. But that place that we went to in Baltimore for breakfast, and there was one in New Orleans we went and breakfast. They had so many different options of a breakfast food. Those are the kind of places that I'm looking for. So
Yeah, I
I
think
don't know.
Dragos? When we went to
There was-
Dragos in New Orleans?
Yes, that was
Yeah,
out.
But Drago's is not a Shane place.
It's-
Drago's is like famous worldwide.
Yeah, and it's pretty cut and dry. You're going
Dumb
there, but
fucks
you're
didn't know about it until I told you about it.
Dude, it's been on Food Network a million
Yeah.
times. Everyone knows about Drago's.
You're
Yeah,
getting the
but
same thing.
Y'all don't Food Network foodie. Y'all go find some, dumbass shit where they're foraging mushrooms and making it into steak.
Mr. Mama's wasn't known for the food. It was known for the atmosphere and the fact that Mr. Mama himself
You
was there.
apologize to Mr. Mama because you're treading right now, brother. We go back to Vegas. You're in trouble.
Okay, here's what we're
Hannah,
gonna do.
this
I'm
Here's
leaving
what
all
we're gonna do. We're gonna settle this debate in Atlanta. We're each gonna pick a restaurant and then we'll vote to see how that restaurant scores.
I'm gonna pick a restaurant and not invite you to. That's what I'm gonna do.
Because you can't win.
No, I'll enjoy the fucking restaurant. I'll
Yeah,
send
by
you a
yourself.
tweet. Yeah.
Solitude.
Hannah, you want to chime in?
Oh no, I just enjoy that. Listen, this is the best part about hanging out with these guys. I just sit here and laugh. They fight.
So now that we've established that we all love each other so much, what's your goal moving forward? Like, where do you want to go from here?
You
I
know,
want to do a lot more national presentations. I'm
I
sure
was
hoping that comes
you know,
out of this.
I'm actually Shane, I'm kidding. That's seriously the goal that I had in mind. Wasn't a national presentation for you to do on your own. I really want to take this on the road. That's a goal of mine. In addition to everything Jay said earlier, kind of diversifying the show and going in some different directions in the field with our guests. Yeah, that's an obvious goal. Like, I think there's definitely so much representation that we could still hit, right? We're 43 episodes in. There's a lot to go, or a lot more directions that we can go. But as far as a couple of my really most memorable experiences with the show was we talked about that conference session. That was a lot of fun. And I'm not saying necessarily always about the podcast, but then Jay and I had the opportunity to be in Maryland, and Shane always says he doesn't get the invite. I would love to do that. We had this crazy opportunity, never really ended up happening. I think we've talked about it on the show, but Maryland asked if they got a certain keynote, if we would be that individual did not want to do a typical keynote. They wanted
because of Jay. They didn't want to do it because of Jay.
No. They wanted a panel style. So their thought could we talk about the interview at this point?
I think we can.
Have
It's
we
not
already done?
embargoed anymore. Yeah.
So it was Nick Offerman, it was Ron Swanson, right? And Maryland was negotiating with Nick Offerman, and Nick Offerman basically came back and said, even if they could afford it, he didn't want to give a speech, a presentation. He wanted it to be panel style. And how cool would that be if we could take the show on the road and do some kind of live panel style, kind of like Smartless? They had a lot of fun with that. I've watched some of those episodes of them taking it on the road, and that'd be a goal of mine.
Would we all still stay in the same hotel room? I'm all in. Let's do it.
Oh my gosh.
I agree with Tom in some ways. I think there's a lot still to uncover. We've highlighted people that clickbait's a terrible word, right? But like you see a Jody Adams thing and you have so much respect for Jody Adams. Everyone across the country knows Jody Adams, knows of Jody Adams, has heard that name. And so they click on it. And obviously she lived up to the hype, one of our highest viewed episodes. But I think when I think of Jeff O'Shea or Johnny O or people that aren't on this national stage, they're not necessarily in the academy or whatever, that we've been able to expose people to. I have enjoyed that. I've enjoyed seeing people respond to them. I've enjoyed people enjoying their episode or saying, hey, I really enjoyed that episode with Johnny or whoever. And that's what I'm trying to do in season 3, is to continue to cultivate some really cool people that need to be known more.
I'm just going to echo what was just said, because I agree. I would love to go to a conference with the two of you guys and present. Doesn't have to be on podcasts. We all have great leadership skills and lead our teams in different ways. And we've talked about that throughout different episodes, and our philosophies are different. And that's what makes part of this whole podcast very unique, is that we all care deeply about what we do. We all may do it differently. And I think we can put together an awesome session that would be well attended at a conference. No plug intended, but I guess maybe selfishly, hopefully that does happen. And then, moving forward with the podcast, I think, we're just kind of scratching the surface of the people that we can connect with. And there's a lot of different regions that we haven't pulled from. I ran some stats the other day, and, we had 12 different states represented in this season. And then with first season and combined, we had over 20 different states that we've had guests from, which is pretty cool. So would love to tap into some other states, because we have a lot of states where we had a lot of guests. We had several from Texas, several from Carolina, several from Illinois, but there's some parts of the country we haven't tapped into yet. And that's something I want to hopefully get to.
My goal moving forward is to be here and keep supporting you guys and make sure that y'all present your very best.
Thanks, Hannah. At least someone's looking out for me.
Uphill battle.
It's harder sometimes than others, but that's okay.
Well, what I can say as a listener, thank all of you for everything that you do. And I know that Tom, you mentioned and all of you have some challenges sometimes in sustaining that. But as a listener, like that's something that I look forward to every single week, because knowing, again, the realness, the genuineness of it, here y'all go banter back and forth on all of these. I look forward to the episodes, and I look forward to, while listening and learning, also seeing that relatability aspect of it. And y'all are amazing. And I really just want to say thank you guys so much for all of y'all say a couple of hours. I know that it's significantly more each week, even if you're not counting those hours, just talking about it, the new ideas. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much for coming on the show and flipping the tables for us and being our host today. This has been fun to have this discussion. I know we've gone a little bit longer than we normally do, but it's been great to have you here, and I appreciate you so much being my guest and coming along with that. So thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, Katie. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Wait, before Katie goes, the show usually goes that the hosts stay. So do we just leave?
Yeah.
True
And then
story.
they
Did
talk
Katie and
about
Hannah
us.
just talk for a while?
We've got to have you guys close it out.
Fair enough.
Bye, friends. Have
Bye,
fun.
Katie.
Bye,
Thank
Katie.
you.
That was fun. It was, we did one recap last year and it was kind of pulling things from different stuff. And this recap has been totally different. And it's very cool to just to be a little bit more retrospective in a different way, not looking at literal moments that we thought were cool, but just overall the idea behind it and where we're at, where we're going. This has been fun.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot of cuts on this episode. Just no,
No,
just kidding.
leave it raw all the way.
No, it was a good time, and no, I really appreciate obviously Katie stepping in, and Hannah, you surprising us with Katie. We had talked about if it was like your sisters or something like that.
Yeah.
We had some little side conversations before the episode.
I know, I was very jealous. Y'all were having a side conversation. I wasn't included.
She came in at one point. She's like, "Where are y'all having this conversation?" I was like, "We have our own chat. We don't have to include you."
There's so many different chat groups.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
No, it was a
She's
good
got
time.
Major FOMO. She does not like
I
to be left
do.
out of anything.
I don't. It's terrible. It's terrible. You guys have done really, really great work. This whole process has been a really exciting journey. I've been very honored to be a part of this journey with you guys. Thank you for letting me come along and have a front row seat to watching you guys do good things.
Well, we'll see if we renew your
Well-
contract. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I was going to go the
questionable.
other direction and say,
Oh,
Hannah,
my
we
contract.
couldn't do this without
Yeah.
you. So
True.
thank you for all the time and effort you put into it, because it would not be here if it wasn't for you.
Yeah, I joked earlier in this when we were talking about the session and Hannah was in the audience, but I think I asked Hannah to answer at least three questions that were directed to us, right? At least
She
it
got
was
several shout outs.
yes. So I echo that.
Well, and firing her would make my sleeping arrangements pretty awkward.
Yeah, you're in
To
a
be quite
tough
honest.
spot.
Yeah. So I think we're going to keep her on.
Well, it might be that you get fired before she gets fired.
Yeah.
Oh
Hey,
my God.
on that note, season 3 right around the corner.
That's right.
Can't wait. Well, guys, thanks so much for being here. And with that, we'll sign off and say, see you in season 3.
See ya.
See you guys.
Bye, everyone.